Hey, welcome back to the Small Business Mindset. Today, I want to talk about something that might be a little controversial, and that is the subject of unconscious bias. Now, this might be a little interesting to cover today because I think sometimes we put our walls up when we hear about that. But here's what I'm talking about when it comes to business, and you could definitely apply this to real life. But I think most importantly in business, we tend to approach the world with a new business idea thinking everyone should love it as much as we do. And the reality is, sometimes when we approach investors, partners, things like that, we don't really realize that they are coming to the table with an unconscious bias too. We have our own bias because we think our idea is the best idea and we've proven it and we've tested it and we feel so energized by it, but we need to get other people engaged. So, what are they coming to the table with? I'm going to use an example that I think we all can relate to. Think about your very first job you had, probably as a teenager or as a young adult. How did you prepare for that interview or for that application process? Did you maybe wear your best shirt and make sure your pants were ironed or you had some good shoes on? Or did you kind of, you know, shuffle into the store or the fast food restaurant or whatever you were applying and, hand off a crumpled application or resume? I hope not. And you probably didn't get hired that way. But if you think about how you present yourself physically, emotionally, with bright eyes and a smile and a handshake and a thank you, it goes a lot further. But let me get more into detail with what I mean from you know, a business bias. I think a lot of business owners at some time in their business journey, whether it's immediately at the onset or as they move forward. I actually met a business owner recently I've been working with. He's never applied for a business loan before in his history of owning his business over 20 years. How amazing. But now he's in a position where he's expanding. And so he's having to go find funding. And I think he's realizing he's a wonderful guy, has a wonderful idea, but I think he is uncovering an unconscious bias when it comes to not only him and his philosophy and how he works, but also the parties that he needs to pitch his idea to. So it's been a fun journey to work with him together to kind of start unraveling all those layers, kind of peeling it like an onion to figure out, okay, where is the core of what he's getting to and how can I help him as his representative to not only communicate his vision, but to make him have him show up on the most solid ground possible with the best financial outlay, with the best plan, with the best partners and supporters and references and investors. And that creates a package for success. I meet a lot of business owners that want to be business owners that have a great idea. And I love their enthusiasm. And in fact, I probably meet with one a week. And it's all kinds of different concepts. It might be restaurants. Restaurants are very popular for some reason. And I love food. And so I love to get ideas from there. Some of them might be totally different. It might be, developing a new concept, a tech app. It could be, I've had someone recently that was trying to develop a youth program. I love all these ideas and I love the passion they bring because without the passion, those ideas wouldn't exist. So I love the passion. And a lot of times when I meet with these individuals, it's because we're looking at a property together. And in commercial real estate, many times the space has to be an element that's plugged into their business plan, which I think is important for them to get a budget and an idea. They need to have that variable, that budgetary item factored in. But after we've done that, and I've heard their thoughts and their dreams and their enthusiasm and their passion, I start asking some questions. I say, okay, first and foremost, I want to know, what have you done previously to prove this concept? Do you currently work in, let's use a restaurant. Do you currently work in the restaurant industry? Yes or no? Do you currently manage any type of business acumen? Do you run the books? Have you run a company before? How did that go? What did you learn from? Do you have cash in the bank? Or do you need startup funds because you have no cash in the bank? So these are things I want you to think about. And you might, as you're listening to this and you're thinking, I have a really good idea and I have a concept. I don't have any of those things. I've never owned my own restaurant. I've only developed, maybe some catering in my home kitchen. I've never managed the business. I don't have any cash in the bank to dedicate to this. Okay. So whether or not those are still unconscious biases, I want you to frame it in a way that gives you the leverage when you go meet with somebody to ask for something, ask for investment, ask for advice that sets you up in a way that you're open to that. Because honestly, if you come to the table and you answer my questions and I say, I love your concept, I love your ideas. I'm an investor too, actually. So I love to engage with these business ideas and these new business concepts. And I'm asking them the hard questions and I'm making them a little vulnerable. What really sets me off, and I come in with an unconscious bias too as an investor, is when they give me this broad stroke non-answer. So the broad stroke non-answer could look like, "Oh, yes, I'm familiar with all the tactics and strategies that go into running a restaurant." Great, but you still didn't answer my question. Tell me something that's real. And sometimes I can get to the bottom of it and I find out, "Oh, you've never opened a restaurant before." But that's okay. But what opportunities have you explored and what avenues have you engaged in that help you learn that? Have you help run a food truck for your friend? Have you gone through management training? Have you attended classes in culinary arts that help you understand, you know, ingredients and inventory and how to stock stuff? Have you taken some HR coursework that helps with the hiring recruitment process? Have you understand the business practices? Have you sat down with a bookkeeper or a CPA and understand those analytics and how you have to manage it? I think so many times, and there's nothing wrong with this, we kind of develop an idea because of a like a wing and a prayer or hope and a dream. And we hope that somebody sees our passion. And we hope that this millionaire investor is just going to pop out of the sky and say, I believe in you and I want to support you financially to see your dream succeed. Does that happen? Sometimes, probably as often as it happens as a social media influencer becomes a millionaire. And I'll be honest with you, that is a hard thing to do. We think it looks really easy, but the ones that make it look easy that are actually successful, that's a lot lower percentage than you actually think. The ones that do it well probably are not the ones on social media talking about it, quite honestly. They do it in private and they do it in quiet. And they quietly do the work and they put their head down and they start working really hard. And then in a few years, when they pop up and they're like, okay, I've done something, I've made success, I'm making revenue, I'm able to pay myself, I'm able to grow and expand. That's quite honestly when you start hearing about them. And that's when a lot of us say, oh my gosh, she's an overnight success. But in reality, her success took 10 years to get there, but you just didn't hear about it yet. My best advice for you, if you can put together a business idea and you're trying to put together all the pieces to get your business running because you want to lead it and you want to own it, and you're hopeful that people will come to the table, best thing you can do, go start working for somebody else first. Go get some training, go get some understanding of how the business works. And, and then be open about like, my intention here is that I want to own my own business one day and get their support. Because believe it or not, if you are a restaurateur and you want to open up your own restaurant, but you've never worked in a restaurant before, go work for another restaurant. Start as the hostess, start as the bus person, start as the dishwasher, and understand everything from the ground up. There's so much wealth of knowledge that you can gain working for somebody else because you will see how they run their operation. You'll see their management style. You'll see, you can start asking questions. How do you decide what inventory to keep and how long? And, how do you decide to manage this? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And a good business owner will probably be very open with you and say, this is why we do this. And this is what I found over years that works really well. Also be afraid to fail. And I know when we think about unconscious bias, we want everyone to like us and we want everyone to support us from the day one. But quite honestly, they're not going to. And I want you to be comfortable with that. I know early in my career, being a female business owner, yeah, people had unconscious biases against me because of my youth, because of my sex, maybe because of the color of my hair. I don't know. But I was willing and eager and I got frustrated. I'll be honest with you. I got frustrated because I felt like I am a hard worker and I know what my worth is. They just don't see it yet. And that's an unconscious bias. But honestly, it's hard to get around. When I hire interns at my firm, and I've met with a lot of young people over the last few years and talked about, okay, why do you want to come work for me? Why do you want to work for me for the summer or the fall or for this semester? What would make you a great candidate? And I'm always interested to see what their answers are because honestly, most of them have no experience whatsoever working in real estate or especially commercial real estate. Some of them have, but some of them feel like, well, it's because of who I know, or who I know knows you, or, sometimes I might have one of their parents reach out to me. Probably not the best idea. I want them to stand on their own 2 feet and be honest with me. I want them to say, you know what? I'm interested enough in your industry. I feel like I'm a hard worker. I'm responsible. I'm on time. I'm going to tell you all the things that I feel deeply in myself that answers the question to overcome the bias that you immediately have about me because I'm young, because I don't know, and I don't have much experience. So, how can I overcome that immediately? And what are my requirements? We forget sometimes to go on that initial interview. That initial interview happens even at this point in my career. When I'm meeting with a new client, that is an initial interview. And I want to overcome that unconscious bias from the get go. I want to think about, how I'm showing up. What research have I done to understand what they are personally, but also what their business looks like? And I want to make some assumptions as I'm meeting with them and as I'm asking them questions. I'm like, I have a feeling their goal here is to X. But I'm not going to just pigeonhole them and just think about that one thing. I'm going to start asking questions and I'm going to listen really well. And my goal is I want to uncover their unconscious bias about me, but their unconscious bias about themselves and their organization. Because I think if we can kind of peel that onion and reveal those things, I can then help solve their problem. And sometimes it's not a problem, but it's meeting their goal. If I can help solve their problem to meet their goal, we have a win-win. Isn't that amazing? But I think sometimes we come into situations where we assume, well, if they don't like me, then I'll just go find somebody else. You can do that. You might be asking person after person after person, and you might be beating your head against the wall. There's nothing wrong with starting small. And there's nothing wrong from learning. And there's nothing wrong from getting the time in and, doing the dirty work and working your way up. When I was in college, I love telling these personal stories because I kind of get to go back in time a little bit. When I was in college, I cleaned houses on the side. I had multiple part-time jobs to kind of make ends meet. And I love cleaning and organizing because I love the end result. But I realized I'm like, my cleaning houses for somebody wasn't so much of the money was actually good. So way back when I was cleaning houses, I think they paid me $15 an hour cash, which was amazing because I think minimum wage at the time was probably around $5. I'm dating myself a little bit. But it was for me, it was easy work because it's something that I enjoyed doing. And I got to interact. There was one lady I worked for, she had a terminal illness. So she was homebound. And I came in to clean her house every couple of weeks and we got to have a conversation as I was cleaning for her. And the funny thing is her house was always spick and span. I mean, I felt like, why are you hiring me? Well, I think they needed some deep cleaning done. But I think for the most, it was more than that. It was also the camaraderie and having someone come into her house every couple of weeks and just have a conversation with her for a couple hours. And I got to learn about her and learn about her life and her family and, what she loved and what she loved to do. And she got to learn about me too, which was great. I then took on a part-time job where I was cleaning a bank. I got to clean a bank and banks are open during the day. So I had to clean it at night. And so after they closed down. And so the earliest I could go in to clean that bank was probably 6:30 or 7 o'clock. But as long as I think they had a requirement, as long as I was done, by 10 or midnight or something like that. But going in there, it's funny, early in my career, I was still in school, still making ends meet. And I was literally emptying trash and wiping down countertops and vacuuming and things like that. And during that time when I was cleaning that bank, there was a younger banker who worked late frequently. And him and I would chat, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to bother you here," but I thought, you know, it led me to some conclusions about the industry that actually I would end up working in. I'm like, what do bankers do? How do they work? What does the environment look like? How does it feel? What is the expectation? What do the people look like and how do they do and how do they function? And I think for a long time I thought, oh, bankers' hours, they work 9 to 5 and then everyone's gone for the day. But this one guy, he was there. He was trying to get his business up and running. He was trying to understand the industry. So he stayed late a lot of times. Almost most days I was there, at night, at 8, 9 o'clock at night, he was there working on his business, making sure he was caught up on what he did. And it turned out we maintained a friendship over the course of my career. And I got to see him blossom and grow. But he had this dedication and thought, you know what? I'm young. I'm just starting out in this industry. If it means putting in extra hours to learn and to be competent and where I want to grow, this is what I need to do. And I got to see that. Nobody else got to see that because he didn't, this is before social media. He didn't put it on social media. He did it quietly in a dark building by himself. And I really admire that. And I really remember that. And he remembers me because I was the girl that cleaned the bank at night, and now I'm a CEO. It's so funny how those experiences allow us to learn from the ground up. I don't think I admire people more that haven't that have started at the bottom. I mean, you're the dishwasher, you're the guy that takes out the trash, you're the person that sets up and takes down. I think by understanding that and having that value and that quality about you, you can overcome unconscious bias very quickly because you've just earned the respect of someone that says, I just don't want to start here. I've done all the other jobs. I've gotten dirty. I've been tired. I've failed. I've loaded up and picked up and came early and stayed late and all these kinds of things. And I broke a glass or, who knows? I drove the truck. Don't be afraid to do the work. Don't be afraid to get mucky and muddy and be that person. You don't always have to show up as being the CEO right away, even if you want to own your own business. Go ahead and be the worker. Go ahead and improve yourself. I think we one of the reality shows that I think came on TV within the last number of years is Undercover Boss. And I think it's kind of funny and they all have their different stories, but I think that's a great example of an unconscious bias. You have usually the CEO or the owner of a company that's probably successful. And more than likely, they sit in a office tower somewhere in another city. And whether they own a franchise of, yogurt shops, or maybe they own a trucking company, or who knows, whatever the company they are, a lot of times there's a disconnect between the owner of the company and the worker bees, the people that are doing the work for you, that are making you the money. And so the undercover boss, they take the CEO or the boss and they, put him undercover and they put him down into the company a lot of times with those frontline workers. They're flipping the burgers, they're filling the order in the warehouse, they're driving the truck, they're taking out the trash. And what is so eye-opening is that many times they're having conversations with their colleagues at that same level. The frontline hourly worker that just started a month ago, or you may be somebody that has worked their way up in a management position. And they're doing a great job of asking great questions and listening. And they're like, and a lot of times they ask the question of, why are you here? Why is this a great place to work or not? Where do you want to go? And a lot of times where they want to go is not with that company. They have higher hopes and dreams, but because they got to see them put in the work at whatever level they are and take pride in that and do it well and listen and be a good leader at whatever level you are, that will set them up for success. And that will help overcome that unconscious bias because you get to see the person behind the scenes and you get to see the work they're doing that fulfills their mission. Whatever work you do, whether it's me cleaning banks and houses, it trained me into that really good work ethic. I'm scrubbing people's toilets and I'm taking out their trash, and I understand what makes them tick. And I understand nothing is beneath me as far as doing the hard work to get something done. And at the end of the day, it's about serving people. It's about serving yourself and making sure you're meeting your goals and you're fulfilling your passion and your hopes and your dreams. But it's also serving other people. If you want people to support you and you want people in your life, overcome that unconscious bias. Find out what makes them tick. You don't need to believe the same political things. You don't have to believe the same cultural things or even live in the same neighborhood. You have to find something that connects the two of you. That's important for two of you. A lot of times, the only thing that connects us is the fact we live in the same community. Or maybe we have the same end goals for our business. They want to come out ahead and have an exit strategy that provides them with an income or success financially. And I want to help them do that. And sometimes for me, it might mean that my income comes at a later date. They get the success first, I get the success later. But we have to come together and realize and support each other in achieving those goals simultaneously and creating and breaking down the unconscious bias that exists. So I hope today you got a few tips thinking about overcoming unconscious bias in your business, in your life, coming to the table and recognizing that they have unconscious bias, I have unconscious bias, but what is the name of the game? How can I come to the table and create a win-win to show value, to show hard work, to ask for what you want, but realizing that if there are hurdles to overcome, what work can you do now to overcome it? So that way you erase the unconscious bias and you achieve success, investment, support, and more importantly, you get a chance to grow your business.